Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game with me, Kevin Day, and Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire. Lovely one there, Kieran, as you quietly did the countdown and then suddenly burst into life. It's like the deep, dark, melancholy one from the Christmas Carol. Yeah. You know how much I don't like mentioning Christmas when it's not Christmas. How are you? It feels like ages since I've seen you, because we recorded a couple at the start of last week. And
yes, well, I've been to Chicago for
Very
the
nice.
best part of a week.
Lovely.
Absolutely amazing city. Incredible food, incredible history, incredible architecture. So that's why I took a break. The Baroness had spotted that there was a gap in the ectoplasm of football for a couple of weeks, and demanded that I be marched away. I didn't like to say to her that it's the 31st of March coming up, and about 20 or 30 clubs are going to be publishing their accounts in the days beforehand. But I managed to sort of surreptitiously update my spreadsheet at about 4 o'clock in the morning while she was fast asleep, to make sure that normal standards of dweebiness were being maintained.
I think we established, Kieran, you and I, in a message between ourselves whilst the Baroness was asleep, that there are three things that don't sleep: football finances, rust, and Kieran Maguire, basically.
Yes.
Well, you'll be pleased to know while you were gallivanting around, I've had a horrible chest infection, which I think I caught from David Baddiel doing a radio show with him. I'll tell you how bad it was. On Monday, I actually considered phoning the doctor. That's how.
You'll be evicted from the union of blokes.
Exactly so. Yeah, no, Ali was. I was sweating. I wasn't well, and Ali was holding the phone in front of me, going, "Call the doctor, call the doctor." And I go, "No, get away from me, get behind me, Satan! I will not." It's Newsday, Kieran. We have some very interesting news stories. We're starting with a news story that dominated the first weeks of our pod back in, nearly 7 years ago now. It's a story that we hoped we would never have to talk about again. And here it is. And hopefully this has been resolved forever, Kieran.
Yes, this is the tragic loss of life of not only Emiliano Sala, but people forget that the pilot passed away too. And then there's been an ongoing issue between Cardiff City and the French club involved, where Cardiff had put in a claim for £100 million of compensation for loss of revenue. They said that had Emiliano Sala not died in the air crash, then they would have avoided relegation, and therefore they would have had additional monies from the Premier League on the back of that. Now, we are not lawyers, and we're not even going to pretend, because this is a human story, to sort of knock it back to our normal level of pub lawyerdom. But the case was rejected by a French judge. Now, to be fair, I think we have been critical in the past, where we felt that perhaps certain elements of the case were being drawn out in public, and this is a private issue as much as possible. But Emiliano Sala's, I think, family were represented at the case as well, and I think there's an ongoing issue in terms of where they stand. But I think they are being they will get some form of settlement as well. We love football for so many reasons, but one of the things which we have said is that the commoditisation of young people is part of the industry, and that is part and parcel, and we accept that. But we have to remember that we are dealing with people, and for this particular issue to be treated as a as a legal dispute between two companies trying to maximise their financial position is tawdry, but it is also business. And the two things just don't lie well together, in my view, and you just feel very uncomfortable about the whole matter.
We know, Kieran, that French law operates differently to English law, which is why our pub lawyer degrees don't work anyway. But is this the end of it, do we think now? Is there still an appeal process possible, or will Cardiff, please God, say that's the end of the matter now, let's move on and let his family have some peace?
Well, the judge has said that Nantes, who was the former employer, was not at fault here. It said that the claim was extravagant, and Cardiff had to pay, I think, best part of £500,000 in legal costs. And this has been going over. It's been going over the legal system for a few years. We will have to see whether there will be a further issue in terms of Cardiff and the agent involved, because if the agent was responsible for organising the flight, then are there responsibilities there? But all that I would say is that this should be done in private as best as possible, because it must be horrendous for Emiliano Sala's family to have to go through this and to see their sons passing, being treated in such a manner.
There are times when what football division you play in and how much money your club has got, it's just not as important as one man's, like two people's lives and the family that are left behind. Almost by way of a light-hearted relief, Kieran, we come to Tottenham Hotspur, who are the gift that keep on giving. Basically, not only, I mean, they've spent a lot of money sacking one manager, and they've spent a lot of money bringing a new one in, which, such is Tottenham Hotspur, you can't even pretend to know that this Roberto De Zerbi is going to be their last manager of the season. I know he signed a contract for 5 years, but there's every chance that he might play 2 matches and bugger off. But let's take the sacking first of Igor Tudor. It wasn't surprising, Kieran. It was publicly called for in the media and by Tottenham fans after about 2 games. But it must have cost them a lot of money.
Yes, and again, we've got to look at this from a human point of view. Igor Tudor's father passed away, which meant that he was unable to conduct media duties, and I think it was probably for the best. A man should be allowed to, anybody should be allowed to grieve for the loss of somebody that they love, and to go through that grieving process, and it does put our football loyalties into the correct box when things like this happen. But yes, we have seen. With the sacking of Ruben Amorim, it cost Manchester United £15 million. Now, Igor Tudor effectively was brought in a sort of a Red Adair role. So, whether that will be a huge settlement, we will have to find out in due course. Spurs did publish their accounts sort of yesterday, and they did something which I don't particularly like. In the sense that they put out a press release rather than the accounts themselves, and the press release sort of goes into those elements which the club would like us to focus on, but it did mention that Spurs, and I've said historically that Spurs are the most profitable club in Premier League history. Well, I think they've lost that particular crown because they lost a £94 million post-tax loss. And they said, as with prior years, no dividends have been paid. Well, yeah, there's a reason for that. So I don't even know why they put that into the equation. But yeah, to have lost 95 million quid is, for a club which has become a multi-sport, multi-function entertainment complex, which runs a football club, is quite spectacular. and this will add to it. In the case of Roberto De Zerbi, all that I would say, yeah, okay, and love the man to bits as a football fan. At the same time, there will be some spectacular highs and spectacular lows from a Spurs point of view, I would imagine. As somebody who was there when we lost 6-1 away to Villa and 4-0 on a Tuesday night to Luton, don't think it's necessarily going to be success on the pitch. But there will be some incredible memories. So it's an interesting issue from Spurs' point of view. It does look like a panic decision, but there weren't that many alternatives, especially given that Roy Hodgson has decided to go elsewhere.
Indeed, and Harry Redknapp wants to go horse racing every Saturday, so he can't do those days. Interesting, Kieran. Scunthorpe, didn't they issue a press release as well to say their accounts were coming out? Is this a new thing? The press release ahead of the accounts?
Yes, and this is a strategy, and Liverpool have done it, and Palace have done it. They will put out what the club will call a financial review, and this is effectively a sort of a greatest hits compendium of the numbers that the club is prepared to release. So I don't like this because I don't think you're getting the full story. I absolutely understand why clubs go down this particular route, however, because from a reporting point of view, the media will pick up on the press release. They will effectively cut and paste. They will re-quote those numbers. All of the focus will be on those numbers. And then perhaps a week later, the financial statements will be submitted to Companies House. And then, that's when, myself, Stefan Borson, Greg, Swiss Ramble, we will go through them in more detail. But people have lost interest. And therefore, you go, there's some numbers that perhaps you should. Now, I did manage to find Spurs accounts hidden away on the website, but there was no link to them on the website. And then you find, Daniel Levy is 5.7 million. Seems quite a lot of money to pay for for an entity. And this is in season 24-25. This was before he was dismissed. So that there did seem to be a strategy here undertaken by the club of trying to manage the system. And I'm not saying I'm a rebel, Kevin. I'm not saying I'm the Wolfie Smith of football finance, but I don't like being managed. And I'm always. I always take the view that if you're not going to give the full story, there must be a reason for not giving the full story, and perhaps issues such as executive pay do warrant greater degree of scrutiny. And why wasn't this covered in the press release as well?
You're a rebel in your world, Kieran. Let's leave it at that. I noticed Palace issued a statement saying they made a profit last season, but they also issued it on April Fool's Day, so I chose to ignore it.
Yes, they did. They I think they made a profit of around about £8 million. That was due to player sales. So again, what is the purpose of a football club? And player trading. There's no doubt. Player trading is an element within the overall framework of running a football club as a business. But at the same time, perhaps the club should have given as equal credibility to saying, we would have lost £58 million had we not sold players in the year. Because that indicates why football clubs have to do what they do in terms of player trading.
That sounded like a 1930s song. Football clubs have to do what they do. Back to Tottenham, Kieran. And to save some of our younger listeners wandering off to Google Red Adair, he became a strange celebrity in the 70s. He was a man who put oil fires out. He travelled the world. He was a Texan, I believe, and he travelled the world putting out oil fires, being paid for an awful lot of money for it. And every now and again at the end of the news, they'd go, on a lighter note, Red Adair's put out a new fire. And there'd be a grainy picture of him being lowered down onto an oil well somewhere in Guadalajara. Part of the reason that Spurs have lost such a lot of money getting rid of Igor Tudor is, of course, they had to get rid of 2 coaches they brought in at the same time. They've now brought Roberto De Zerbi in, as you rightly said, but strangely on a 5-year contract, which seems, and enough people have mentioned this for it to be credible, not to have a relegation clause. So if they do go down, he will be the manager in the Championship next season. Now, bear in mind, I don't think he's ever stayed at any club longer than 16 months. This all seems slightly optimistic and expensive for Tottenham.
Yes, it does. Roberto De Zerbi is a challenge to manage. Okay, he, as a coach, he is incredibly intense, but he creates chaos at the same time. And from a again, all I can say is that from a fan point of view, we'd never heard of him when he arrived at Brighton. We ended up going into Europe, and we will always hold him in great affection, because I wouldn't have gone to Amsterdam and Athens and Rome and all of those places had it not been for his management. But he's a very demanding person, and I think that takes its toll at all of the clubs where he has been, and that's why you say he's good for a short-term period. If, however, he is successful at Spurs this season and Spurs stay up, and I still think that they are favourites to stay up, then he will want to be in a strong position. Spurs will also say, well, yeah, what happens if he does turn things around next season, for example? All of a sudden, they will have a manager who's in demand. So Spurs are protecting their own interests. And yes, that it might not have a relegation clause, but contracts, schmonkrats. There's always ways of getting out of them. And if Spurs go down, let's be honest, they should rip up the Championship next season. And from De Zerbi's point of view, if he's riding that particular wave and Spurs are having a fantastic season, then there is no disgrace managing in the Championship.
I know a lot of Tottenham fans, Kieran, a lot of them, and none of them have yet started to compensate by going, well, we'll rip up the Championship next season. We'll beat Lincoln in the first game. It'll be great. They haven't reached that stage yet, Kieran. There are other potential issues, though, Kieran, for Spurs' finances on a much lower level, because already several fans groups have said that they will boycott the rest of the season at Tottenham and won't buy season tickets next year because of De Zerbi's defence of one of his players, basically Mason Greenwood. This is not the pod to get into that sort of thing. Whereas in the past, when Spurs approached Gennaro Gattuso, and the Tottenham fans, because of Gattuso's comments about women footballers and gay marriage, told the club that they would be boycotting any potential games if he became manager. The club listened and stepped back. They've clearly worked out, or they've decided that the views of a few liberal lefty fans are not as important as staying in the Premier League.
Yes, and my view is if fans have to use their own moral and ethical compass to make their decisions and respect those decisions. They are replaceable. Yeah, that is modern football. So I don't think Spurs will be overly concerned. Again, they will try to manage this, but it's a function of what is an awkward issue.
Starting or growing your own business can be intimidating and lonely at times. Your to-do list may feel endless with new tasks, and lists can easily begin to overrun your life. So finding the right tool that not only helps you out, but simplifies everything as a built-in business partner can be a game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. From household names like Gymshark, Rare Beauty, and Heinz, to brands just getting started. Shopify has hundreds of ready-to-use templates that can help you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand's style. And you can tackle all the important tasks in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics and more. No need to save multiple websites or try to figure out what platform is hosting the tool that you need. And if people haven't heard about your brand, you can get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you, with easy-to-run email and social media campaigns to reach customers wherever they're scrolling or strolling. Start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify, and start hearing. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/realm. Go to shopify.com/realm. That's shopify.com/realm.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
One of the reasons I quite like Tottenham fans is that every single one of them I've spoken to this morning talking about the Sunderland game coming up all went Granit Xhaka. He's nailed on. He's going to, even if he's injured, he'll find a way to come on and score the goal that helps relegate us. The Chelsea story, Kieran, is rumbling on, and partly because Nottingham Forest are looking for a rumble.
Yes, I think they are potentially joining Everton to make a formal complaint to the Premier League over Chelsea's punishment for cheating. That's what Chelsea did. And, you know, I was pointing out to somebody that if you take a look at the Chelsea shirt, is that 2 asterisks they've got over the club badge? To acknowledge what they've been doing, because they've just got new sponsors. Is this could be the case for all we know. The overwhelming view is that this is a legal matter. Speaking to some people with legal connections, and I would encourage people to read Stefan Borson's blog. Stefan's a lawyer as opposed to a pub lawyer, and he's a Manchester City fan as well. But I think he's been fairly critical of the nature of the decision, as have other people I know connected with the legal profession. And the view is that Chelsea have got away with it, and Chelsea would say, well, look, we've had quite a significant fine from UEFA, and we had quite a significant fine from the Premier League, and I'm saying, yeah, but you lost 300 million quid last year, and 10 million quid compared to that is peanuts. You spent 1.5 billion on players since new people arrived, so I'm a bit sceptical about Chelsea being deemed to have suffered, and also ultimately this is Chelsea Football Club who have cheated. It is Chelsea Football Club who have made the payments to unlicensed agents and paying people off book and so on. The conclusions reached by the committee that the people involved in the club are not at the club anymore, and therefore it seems harsh to give the club a points deduction. I genuinely don't think that holds any water, because that can effectively set a template going forwards for any rogue owner or any similar set of scenarios, that if you sell the club, then the new owners can't inherit a subsequent points deduction, because if the club has gained on the pitch, and for anybody to say that Chelsea have not gained on the pitch from signing Eden Hazard, it frankly doesn't know the first thing about football. So I can absolutely understand Forest's position. Whether the Premier League are very defensive on this. The Premier League, I think, didn't want to incur any more legal costs as well, because they were racking up. But it hums a bit, doesn't it?
It seems counterintuitive, Kieran, but our legal friends all say they would rather these processes started with complaints. They'd rather it didn't go straight to legal action. They'd rather there was people spoke to each other beforehand. But in this situation, you can't really see what Forest and Everton are going to gain. It's not as though a complaint to the Premier League is going to make the Premier League go, actually, no, fair enough, thinking about it, you're quite right, we'll deduct the points. It seems almost inevitable that there will be some kind of legal action out of this, particularly you would imagine if Forest were the club that were to go down and not Tottenham or West Ham.
Yes, and people say that Forest and Everton didn't suffer financially as a result of these issues, but they did in the sense that they ended up with fewer points, and that had an impact upon their final position in the table. And as we know that there is a merit payment. Forest are perfectly entitled to consider all options. But it has to remember that this was a negotiated settlement between the Premier League and Chelsea, rather than Chelsea being charged by the Premier League. And I think the Premier League's argument would be, had it not been for Chelsea self-reporting, that we wouldn't have even known that this had taken place, which does hold an element of merit, but Chelsea self-reported for a reason, and that reason was not one of we want to hold ourselves to the highest ethical and moral standards, because if they've done that, they wouldn't have breached the UEFA rules last season, which of course have resulted in sanctions from UEFA for financial overspends.
And are we any closer to knowing why this was resolved in December but not announced until the end of March?
Well, yeah, it does seem strange if you read the report. I think it was to give both sides time to reflect on it, but it was signed off by both parties in March. It just seems a bit weird. I'll contact one of our secret lawyers to see if they can explain the gap.
Time to reflect is what you give a toddler when he's thrown a bowl of spaghetti bolognese at your head, isn't it? Not. We've spoken several times recently, Kieran, about John Textor's amazing ability to keep the plates spinning, but it seems that gravity is finally beginning to win.
Yes, US investment manager Ares Management has appointed administrators to Eagle Football Holdings, which is sort of the umbrella company that John Textor has used to invest in a number of clubs. There's a really good photograph on the sports business website of one I think it's Olympique Lyonnais players with his fingers in both ears, which appears to have been John Textor's approach to managing the group when problems have started to multiply. So certainly the view I hold, and I think so, comments from fans of the likes of Everton and Sheffield Wednesday, is dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
I don't want to reopen old wounds from your point of view at Palace, but he was a pain in the backside to have to deal with, and I don't think he was in the best interest of the club. At the same time, everybody that I speak to that has had conversations with John Textor says he's absolutely charming. He's self-deprecating. He's funny. He will not give you guarded answers. He won't necessarily give you consistent answers, but he's good copy. But yeah, my view is that he's been sort of transferring money from one club to another in order to ensure that bills can be paid. But there's always a danger when you take that approach of robbing Peter to pay Paul, that eventually you do run out of options, and this is why his company's now in administration.
Do we know what the final straw was for Ares to put them into administration?
I don't know the exact details. I think it's presumably that they were owed some money, and it's one of those issues that investment companies are not in football because they love football.
Yeah.
They're involved with football because they love money. So the chances are that Ares was owed money and a repayment date was missed, and therefore that triggered this this particular decision, because you can't appoint an administrator unless you've got legal reason to do so.
So how does it work, Kieran? So, it sounds similar to when the club went into administration under Simon Jordan, when he was unable to pay a hedge fund a large amount of money. Do Aries go, right, you haven't paid this money, we apply to a certain court or a certain judge and ask for administration to take place?
Yes. So what's happened is that a company called Cork Gully has been appointed administrators under insolvency law, because it says here under a default under its financial agreements.
Right.
So it's a bit like if you don't pay your mortgage and you then check your mortgage deeds, the bank can effectively foreclose and evict you. And that's what's happened here, that John Textor can no longer be involved in the management of Eagle Football Holdings Bidco, or whatever it wants to call itself. His voice can be heard, but the decisions will now be made by Cork Gully. And what will happen is that they will go through the books, they will write to all the creditors, and they will try to establish who is owed what. And on the basis of that, they will run Eagle Football Holdings and try to find new owners for the company, including its shares in Botafogo and Olympique Lyonnais, and it would have been Crystal Palace as well had the shares not been sold to Woody Johnson.
I can't find a football finance angle to this next story, Kieran, but I just want to mention it. It's possible that Roy Hodgson has asked to be paid in cash, possibly pre-decimal cash, we don't know. But it's good to see a 78-year-old man back in football 42 years after he was first manager of Bristol City.
Yes, yeah, it's you know Roy, you've met him.
Yeah, love him.
One of those people, when I talk to people in the industry, they say he's absolutely charming. And the reason why Roy Hodgson is back is because he loves football.
Yeah.
He doesn't need the money. He doesn't need the hassle. He still feels he's got something to offer, and I think it's sort of quite charming in a way that he's done this. But Bristol City are one of those clubs that have been losing £20 million a year in the Championship, and I think the owner had hoped that Steve Lansdowne had hoped that they would make more progress this season. I think they got knocked out in the playoffs last year, not had a good season, and therefore they sacked the manager and brought him in to steer the ship to the end of the season.
I bet Mrs. Hodgson is delighted. Mrs. Hodgson will be over the moon. Thank God for that, because she'd have been trying to wrestle the remote off him night after night, saying, "Stop watching football, Roy. You're upsetting yourself." He is charming, Roy. He can be not charming as well.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure
he can be quite irascible, as they say. But what you get from Roy Hodgson is absolute commitment, which is fantastic. So those Bristol City fans who say, "What, this is ridiculous, 78-year-old manager," he will look after you till the end of the season. Don't you worry about that. The Everton Fan Advisory Board, Kieran, not happy with Sky about kick-off times this season, and I can't say I blame them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is now 7 occasions that Everton have had fixtures shifted to Monday night. That's the what. What's the why? Is it sort of our glib phrase on this? And the reason why this has been the case, and I think it's also impacted upon. Am I allowed to use impacted? Is that a word I'm allowed to use? Is that one of the words that makes you shiver, Kevin?
I just unmuted myself there, Kieran. So I had a good old-fashioned cough, so I muted myself. I'd rather you didn't use impact as a verb, Kieran. But you're the world's leading football finance expert, so you can be as maverick as you like when it comes to English grammar.
Right. Yeah. Well, the why factor here is that because there are so many Premier League clubs in Europe, that restricts the options for Sky. So when Sky and the Premier League agreed the TV deal, that they sold packages of Monday night games, midweek games, Sunday 4 p.m, Sunday 5:30, Sunday 12:30, and they sold those as sort of packages. And therefore Sky are contractually entitled to quite a few Monday evening games over the course of the season. And that meant that there was a restricted number of clubs that could be seen, because if you are playing in Europe on a Tuesday or Wednesday or even a Thursday, it meant that Monday matches became sort of off-ramp, which meant that, as at Palace, you've been playing in Europe this season, so therefore you've been playing sort of Sunday, Thursday, Thursday, and not having Monday matches. It's exactly the same for the 6 clubs that we have had in the Champions League, and so on. So what has happened here is that it meant that Sky say, well, okay, who delivers ratings of the clubs that are not in Europe? Well, Manchester United are one, and Manchester United fans, I think they've protested about this, and which is absolutely understandable, and Everton are another. So it will therefore be that Everton have led the number of matches played on other than Saturdays and Sundays, and I think this is Everton's 7th Monday night match.
Yeah.
Monday nights are not for football, and this is where I really admire German fans. The German football authorities had signed a deal for matches to take place on Monday evenings, and the German fans said it's not a football day. It's just so wrong. That they protested, and I think they did the tennis ball thrown on the pitch response and so on, and they made it perfectly clear. And the German football authorities say, yeah, we got it wrong. Now this is the Premier League. The chances of the Premier League ever saying the Premier League got anything wrong is clearly not part of its makeup. And the Premier League would also say, well, hold on, we've had Monday night matches going back since the inception of the competition, but the atmosphere tends to be a bit flat because it's the first day back at work. You've had to rush to get from work and so on. It's a nightmare for away fans as well. And I can absolutely understand why Everton fans are up in arms about this. That they're doing really well. They've got the potential, ironically, to get into Europe.
Yeah.
But it's additional travel. If you've got kids, then the time the match finishes, you're not getting home till 11 or midnight, and you've got kids who are at school the following day. And to be fair, if you take a look at the fans advisory board's comment, I think it's not moaning for moaning's sake. We fully understand the commercial realities and importance of broadcasting revenues, but the cumulative effect of these decisions is now damaging supporter accessibility, matchday experience, and long-term engagement. And I think they are absolutely spot on in terms of that. And as you know, I work in the city of Liverpool, and I think that the fan groups tend to be very well organised. I think Liverpool fans, they are going to do some form of protest about the recent price increases as far as their season tickets are concerned, and we await developments there. I can't say anything at present, but I know that they are potentially going to go along a particular route. So, I think it's, as fans, we've got to act collectively in the best interest of football as a whole, because you can't necessarily rely on those people in charge to do so, many of whom, of course, have got no interest in football because they're owners who have got no bond. They've got no emotional investment in the game. They just see it as a financial investment.
Well, it's only going to get worse for Sky next year, Kieran, this situation, because firstly, Man United will be back in Europe, barring a footballing collapse of the most extraordinary sort. And secondly, it will take an extraordinary set of circumstances, but it could possibly be 10 Premier League clubs in Europe next season. So the Carabao Cup winners get a place in Europe this season, so obviously Man City winning that means that place has got to go somewhere, and they don't seem to know where, but it's going to be further down the league. So if you do have a situation, and you could have a situation where there's 10 Premier League clubs and Port Vale in Europe, which would be fantastic, but if you've got half the Premier League in Europe, Kieran, then Sky's problems are further exacerbated, aren't they?
They are, and Sky put a lot of money into the game. They have a contractual benefit in terms of the Monday night fixtures, but it does make things increasingly complicated, because there's only so many times that whether that club is whether it's Palace or Brighton or Bournemouth or whoever it is going to be available on Monday nights, who are they playing? They might be up against a side which themselves is playing in Europe. So it actually drops to only one or two fixtures which are physically available for these Monday night options.
It's that time of year, Kieran. It's accountant's Christmas, basically, where we talk about the profit and the loss of various teams. Let's have a look at a couple of individuals. Championship teams, Kieran. One of whom money going out, one of whom money coming in. Sheffield United first lost £16 million, which these days doesn't seem that much, does it?
Well, that's the crazy thing, and when we mentioned this before, that I think as fans we have become anaesthetised. We now see a club losing an 8-figure sum as the cost of doing business. Remember, Sheffield United. Yes, they lost £16 million, but that was after that was after being relegated. Now, player sales have helped to reduce that, but we are seeing the average losses in the Championship, and somebody very kindly sent me a list of the figures in each of the EFL divisions. Losses in the EFL League One have tripled since the end of COVID, and the average losses are now over £6 million. And I was reporting this morning because you are absolutely right. It's been a fairly manic 24 hours in the sense that many clubs have got a 30th of June year end, which means that they have to send in their accounts by the 31st of March, and there's been a lot of brinkmanship here. That Bolton have lost a huge sum of money. Stockport County have lost, I think it was 9 or 10 million. And we're now seeing 8-figure losses, not just for clubs who are in League One. And you might say, well, hold on. If they were promoted, they would have had to go and pay substantial promotion bonuses as well. So, perhaps you ought to take that into account. But yet neither Stockport nor Bolton were promoted, and yet the level of losses is quite spectacular. And that's okay until it's not okay, because that means that every club is being subsidised by owners. I had a conversation with a journalist earlier this week about a club over which we both have concerns, and he was saying there was genuine fear that the wages were not going to be paid this month, and it turns out the finance director phones up the owner to say, this month, in order to pay the wages, you need to pay in 700 grand or 1.6 million or whatever it's going to be, and that phone call had been made, and the owner hadn't put the money across, and then the owner and the money arrived. I was told 6 hours before the payroll was due to go out. So we're moving into this era of brinkmanship, and based on my calculations, and certainly those of others, if owners were to go on strike in the EFL, for example, we would probably see up to 40 clubs effectively go out of business within 6 weeks, in the sense that you are so dependent upon that regular subsidy that there would be no alternative. The wages would not be paid, and the club would not be able to continue. And that's no way to run an industry, in terms of sustainability. We are in conversations with IFR, with the Independent Football Regulator, and we're hoping to have somebody from the Independent Football Regulator to go through this and other issues as well in the next few weeks.
Brinkmanship is how I pay my tax, Kieran. They seem to be as excited about it as I am. HMRC seem to quite like it, but it gets there in the end. Every season, Kieran, we are told, mainly by Blackburn fans, that the Blackburn owners, the Venky's, are a busted flush. They're terrible. They have no money. And yet every season we go, hang on a second, they seem to be putting loads of money into Blackburn.
Yes, and again, that's okay until an Indian court says you're not allowed to transfer money from India to the UK. And that had happened with the Venkies. And that had caused problems with Blackburn Rovers in recent months. But the good news is that there's been a second hearing, or there's been a reconsideration by the court. And on the back of that, what we've seen is that the Venkies can now transfer £18.4 million across to Blackburn Rovers, and that will just again give the company that bit of leeway, because we are reaching that period in sort of May, June, July, when clubs don't have matches, when they are reliant upon owners and other sources. Everybody's already, if you're going to renew your season ticket, you've probably renewed it by now. And so on. So clubs don't generate a lot of revenue during that period, and therefore they have been quite fortunate to be able to get this far. But they've now got it. Now it appears that they're now going to get that money.
The cost of World Cup tickets, Kieran, has dominated the World Cup conversation, along with the big orange baby. But UEFA have fired a massive shot across the bows. I don't know if this is a deliberate decision to embarrass FIFA, but it's certainly got some very good publicity for UEFA.
Yes, you will be able to buy tickets for Euro 2028 for less than half the price of getting a train from a city to a stadium for the FIFA 2026 World Cup. So there's no love lost between UEFA and FIFA. UEFA are unhappy with the expansion of the FIFA Club World Cup. They are unhappy with the somewhat dictatorial approach taken to decision making and the lack of consultation, given that it is sort of the European leagues that provide the vast majority of players for FIFA competitions and so on. But certainly the prices of World Cup tickets, which have been contentious, and yet FIFA do appear to be a bit of a paradox. On the one hand, they say, yeah, we've never had more demand for tickets, and yet tickets, I believe, go on general sale.
Yeah.
I'm going, well, if there's people desperate to get the tickets, surely they've all been sold by now. You keep telling us that we have 1 in 12 people on the planet have applied for them. Doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. But I do think it's very much sort of aimed at individual games, and Switzerland versus Cape Verde or whatever it's going to be isn't necessarily going to be that easy to sell. But I think this is good news. And we're all looking forward to Euro 2028. We will be doing some Euro 2028 live shows ourselves, provided we've recovered from our lurgy, man lurgy that we're both demonstrating spectacularly today. But yes, so less than £30. Admittedly, that's only for a number of tickets. But even so, I think that about 30% of tickets are going to be going for less than £50. So I think that's great for the travelling fan as well as domestic fans. Here, there'll be a huge pile on trying to get tickets when the portal opens.
If we haven't recovered from this lurgy by 2028, Kieran, I think I probably will go to the doctor. To be honest, and perhaps you should go with me. FIFA are going to find it harder to sell tickets for some games in some cities now. Italy haven't qualified. I mean, I love Italy anyway. There's never a moment when I think I don't want to be in Italy, but I'd love to be in it. I'm going to treat myself this afternoon, just have a little look at Italian newspapers online. I can't speak Italian, yes. But I imagine I'll be able to get the gist.
Yes.
Our last story, Kieran, is Erling Haaland again. We had a cultural story last week about Erling Haaland and chess, and now we have a lovely historical cultural story about Erling Haaland, who is growing in my estimation as each week goes by.
Yes, when he's not eating elk and so on. He's a fascinating individual, as well as being an amazing footballer. But what he's now done, and this is our textbook, skateboarding hamster end of show story. He has decided to donate a 16th century book of Viking sagas to the part of Norway where he grew up. So I think he paid a lot of money for this book in an auction, and like all good philanthropists, he said, I shouldn't just be kept by me. And I was at the Chicago Institute of Museum of Art over the weekend, and it was, I've never seen, Van Goghs and similar, and Andy Warhol, originals to such an extent, and that very much is part of sort of the American approach to gathering art. They say, we own it, but we're going to let you peasants see it, and it was, to be in the same room as a Van Gogh self-portrait was really humbling experience. So fair play for Erling Haaland for doing this. I think he's very proud of his roots, and he's giving others the opportunity to see about the history and the heritage of the country that he loves.
I can't imagine the circumstances in which I get to meet Erling Haaland. I should probably keep my views about the Vikings to myself, because, as you know, Kieran, in general, I'm a Ginham. I think they've got a remarkably good... The last 15 years, everyone started to go, well, what about the jewellery? What about the amazing tapestry? Yeah, still a lot of raping and pillaging and burning going on, basically.
Yes.
I mean, Noggin the Nog, I'm all right with him.
Yeah.
He seemed to keep himself to himself, basically. I like Noggin the Nog, but again, I'd be very reluctant to confront Erling Haaland and reduce his cultural history to Noggin the Nog.
Yes, it's very wise.
Yeah, he does. His diet is incredible. He seems to just eats raw meat in the cryogenic chamber. Seems to be the summary. But yeah, he doesn't go down with man flu like we do on a regular basis. How does that work? Don't forget you can now join our Price of Football Club, where you'll get ad-free listening, access to our full back catalogue, bonus episodes, Zoom quiz invites, and more. And you can just go to Price of Football and click on... you can just go to priceoffootball.com and click on Join the Club to sign up today. If you have a question you'd like answered on the show, email us at questions@priceoffootball.com. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter, and you can find us on YouTube. And if you want to buy one of our books or even magical Price of Football t-shirt, you can go back to that very same website, priceoffootball.com. I still haven't found a way of not saying priceoffootball.com so often in the sign-off. We will be back on Tuesday with our regular questions pod, and some interesting news about another way you can access the pod, Kieran, for those young people who like to see things going on. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, I shall hand you over to Mr. Kieran Maguire for his customary farewell.
Well, thank you to everybody for engaging with the show. Like, subscribe, or whatever you're supposed to do amongst the congiusenti who support us so well. We really do appreciate it. Those of you that are members of the club, apologies, we owe you a live show, and we'll get that sorted out in the next few days. That was down to me being told by my good lady wife that we were going to spend some time together, which came as a shock to me, as much as her when I actually agreed to it. But there's another way that you can support the Price of Football, and just give us 30 seconds of your time, pop onto the app that you use and give us a wee review. Doesn't matter what you say. You can even say you would rather the show presented by Roy Hodgson and Noggin the Nog.
Oh.
And I think that would be quite a cerebral show, and personally I'd tune in.
I think Roy Hodgson would probably be able to do it in medieval Scandinavian.
Yes.
I imagine Old Norse is one of his languages. He's got an incredible grasp of languages.
He has.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is one of the very many reasons why you shouldn't try and blag an interest in Russian literature in front of him, as I famously tried to do. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
The Price of Football. The Price of Football.
Two kinds of phishing out here. One for fish, one for your data. Hackers try to hook you, but Cisco Duo keeps every user and device protected. Cisco Duo. Phishing season is over. Learn more at duo.com.